When was the last time you said no to something you knew God wanted you to do? Not because you didn't believe it, but because you couldn't afford it. That's what financial bondage looks like. You're saved, you love God, you pray, but your bank balance is the one running the show. That's not freedom, that's bondage. What if your next yes to God did not need a payday first? What if the phone rang and it was a need you could meet today? What if you could walk away from a toxic job without panic? That is the picture we are chasing. Not jets, not belts, just clean obedience without hesitation. And that's what I'm about to show you in this video. By the time we're done, you'll understand why financial struggle is not just a money problem, it's a spiritual battle. You'll see exactly how it's been limiting your faith, killing your opportunities, and keeping you from your calling. And I'll give you practical, step-by-step actions you can take starting today to start breaking that cycle. So if you're interested in this, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Flourish in Wealth, where financial freedom starts. First up, you can't be spiritually free while financially bound. Let's stop pretending like money and faith are in two separate boxes. They're not. Because no matter how saved, called, or anointed you are, if you're drowning in financial stress, you're not free. You're surviving. You're distracted. You're boxed in. You're spiritually handcuffed by something God actually gave you authority over. Let me break it down for you. You can't focus on your calling when you're obsessing over bills. You can't say yes to God if you have to say no to every opportunity. You can't fully serve others when you're constantly serving debt. This is real. Your spiritual life is suffocated when your money life is enslaved. And when you're a slave financially, you don't move by the Spirit, you move by the paycheck. You don't ask, what is God calling me to do? You ask, what can I afford to do? You don't flow with faith, you hustle from fear, and that fear bleeds into every area of your spiritual life. You stop dreaming, you stop praying bold prayers, you stop obeying risky instructions, because money is calling the shots, not God. That's why this is deeper than budgeting or financial literacy. This is a freedom issue. This is spiritual warfare disguised as financial struggle. Because the enemy doesn't have to steal your faith if he can just distract you with survival. Let me make it plain. You can't pour out fully when you're constantly bleeding. You can't lead boldly when you're living in panic. You can't be available to God if you're already fully booked by bills. And I get it. You might be thinking, I'm not chasing money, I'm just trying to survive. But even survival mode is a prison when it becomes your normal. God didn't design you to live paycheck to paycheck. That's not humility, that's a stronghold. John chapter 8 verse 36 says, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. That includes your spirit, that includes your soul. And yes, that includes your finances. So if you're still living in bondage to debt, stress, and scarcity, ask yourself, has money been deciding where I live, what I pursue, what I say yes to? Because if so, you're not free. You're saved, yes, but you're not free. And here's the scary part. You can get used to bondage. You can baptize your budget, spiritualize your stress, and call it God's will. But it's not. It's misalignment. And here's the real twist. Until you recognize that freedom includes your finances, you'll keep calling survival spiritual. But honestly, survival isn't your assignment. Freedom is. And just to be clear, financial freedom doesn't mean private jets and Gucci belts. It means you can obey God with no hesitation. You can say yes to vision. You can bless who you need to bless. And you can walk away from toxic environments because, well, you're not financially trapped. That's freedom, and really that's what God wants for you. Psalm 37 verse 21 says, the wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Look at that contrast. The wicked are always borrowing, but the righteous, they give freely, generously from overflow. So if you're stuck in a cycle of borrowing, stretching, and scraping, don't just fix the budget. Fix the spiritual foundation. Ask God to break the agreement with bondage. Ask for wisdom. Ask for a plan. Ask for new habits. Because true freedom doesn't start when you make more money. It starts when you stop letting money make your decisions. And once you get there, that's when faith flows again. That's when clarity returns. That's when you start living led, not limited. And that's when money becomes what it was always meant to be, a servant, not a master. My next point is this: financial bondage doesn't just drain your bank account, it actually rewrites your prayers. When you're free, your prayers are, well, big. You're asking God for vision, for direction, for people to impact, for opportunities to serve, for bold steps you can take in faith. But when you're in financial bondage, something shifts. Your prayer life gets smaller. Instead of praying for breakthroughs, you start praying for bills. Lord, help me cover rent this month. God, please let this payment clear. Jesus, don't let my car break down right now. And look, there's nothing wrong with bringing your needs to God. The Bible tells us to. But when every single prayer is about survival, You're not praying from a place of vision, you're praying from a place of panic. Bondage pushes you into a corner where you stop believing for the impossible because you're too busy asking for the bare minimum. And the danger is you get used to it. You start thinking that's what prayer is supposed to sound like. But that's not the life you were called to live. God didn't set you free so you could live with your faith on life support. He wants you praying bold prayers again. The kind of prayers that scare you a little, the kind of prayers that pull you into your purpose. And that's why breaking financial bondage matters so much. Because once you get those chains off, your prayers expand. You stop praying just for rent, and you start praying for reach. You stop praying just for bills, and you start praying for impact. That's when faith gets exciting again. Now I want to hear from you. Drop breakthrough in the comment section below if you're done praying just for bills. Moving on, debt doesn't just take money, it takes mastery. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 says, "The borrower is slave to the lender." A slave doesn't decide when to move. A slave doesn't get to choose where to go. A slave doesn't own their time, their choices, or their direction. That's what debt does, you know. Every decision you make has to get filtered through your master, the lender. So you want to start a business that, God put on your heart. Well, first you've got to check with the bank account. And maybe you want to help someone in need, but first you've got to see if the credit card bill is covered. If you owe Visa, MasterCard, the bank, or even your cousin, let's be honest, you're not calling the shots. They are. You've got credit cards sitting at 19% interest, a car loan that's actually worth more than the car itself, personal loans, buy now, pay later plans stacked up like pancakes, and maybe even a mortgage that eats up half your paycheck. If the monthly repayment eats up most of your income, you're not really a homeowner. You're a hostage with a nice living room. You know what that is? Chains. You might not see them, but you feel them every time you say, "I can't afford to." You feel them every time you check your balance before making a move. You feel them every time you want to help somebody and just can't. Debt doesn't just cost you money, it steals your future. You've got a God-given purpose, but you can't walk in it because you're too busy paying for last year's mistakes. You think you're free because you've got a nice phone, a Netflix account, and a car with leather seats, but honestly, you're not free. You're a well-decorated slave. Here's the deal. You can't work for God at full speed when you're financially handcuffed. You can't take risks. You can't say yes. You can't move when he says move because you've got to check with the bank first. Debt shrinks your life into a series of permission requests to a master that doesn't care about your calling. Stop playing with debt. Pick your smallest debt and kill it. Not next year. Not when you get a raise. This month. Sell something. Cut something. Deliver pizzas if you have to. I don't care how. Just kill it. Why? Because when you pay off that first one, something clicks. You realize you can actually break a chain. And when you break one, you'll want to break them all. You can't serve God and debt at the same time. So decide today, who's the master? And once you start reclaiming territory from debt, you'll realize something powerful. You were never created to live under anyone's financial control. This next point is kind of related to the first, but I want to emphasize it again. Survival mode is a prison. You can be saved and still in financial chains. And those chains don't always look like poverty. They can look like maxed out credit cards, or a job you hate but can't leave, maybe even dreams you shelf because your budget says no. The enemy doesn't need to steal your faith if he can keep you busy with survival. Think about it. If every decision is filtered through, can I afford this? Instead of, is God leading me here? Then, money is running your life. And that bleeds into everything. You stop praying big prayers. You stop taking bold steps. You settle for safe, small, predictable. You might say, I'm not chasing money. I'm just trying to survive. Sounds innocent, right? But if survival becomes your normal, you'll start believing it's all God has for you. That's not humility, that's a stronghold. Survival mode keeps you small. You only think about this week, this bill, this problem. It blocks you from seeing beyond the emergency. Here's why that matters. You can't build anything lasting while you're stuck patching holes in a sinking boat. So take inventory of your money habits. If every dollar is already spent before you even get it, you're in survival mode. The first step out is creating any margin, no matter how small. Even $20 left over is a crack in the prison wall. Because once you see that margin grow, you'll realize you're not actually trapped. You've just been living like you are. Next, let's talk about the misalignment nobody talks about. John chapter 8 verse 36 says, "Whom the Son sets free is free indeed." Now most people hear that and think, oh yeah, that's my soul, my salvation, my eternity. And yes, it's that. But it's more. That freedom is supposed to spill into every part of your life, your mind, your relationships, your decisions, your future. And your finances too. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most of us are actually aligned with bondage, and honestly, we don't even know it. We've gotten so good at spiritualizing lack. We say things like, as long as I have Jesus, I'm fine, while we're secretly up at 2 a.m. just wondering how to pay the rent. We sing about freedom on Sunday, then spend the rest of the week dodging calls from the bank. I'm not saying Jesus isn't enough, don't twist this. What I mean is, he didn't set you free so you could keep living like a hostage to debt. It's like someone unlocks your prison door, but instead of walking out, you paint the walls, hang a few pictures, and tell yourself, maybe this is where God wants me. That's honestly what too many believers are doing with their finances. You can be free spiritually, but still stuck practically. You can have peace when you pray, but still be ruled by panic when the bills hit. And you know, that misalignment will eat away at your boldness, your joy, and your ability to say yes when God calls you to something bigger. And if you've been living in that tension long enough, you start believing that's just the way life is. And that's dangerous, because once you get comfortable in chains, you stop looking for the key. So let me just say it. God didn't set you free for you to stay broke, stressed, and financially handcuffed. That's not humility. That's bondage wearing a church outfit. Pray specifically for wisdom in money decisions. Not, Lord, give me more money, but Lord, show me how to use what I have to break free. This shifts your focus from desperation to strategy. Because until you fix the alignment, no amount of extra income will keep you out of chains. What I'm going to say now is very important. We need to redefine what financial freedom actually means. Because honestly, somewhere along the way, the world convinced us it's about private jets, Gucci belts, gold watches, and those Instagram vacations. Let me tell you right now, that's not freedom. That's marketing. And if you chase that definition, you'll either go broke trying to look rich, or you'll get rich and, well, still feel empty. Real freedom is much quieter. It's much simpler. True freedom is when you can obey God without hesitation. He says, go, you go. He says, give, you give. No mental gymnastics. No, I'll do it later when I have more. And well, no anxiety about how you're going to cover it. True freedom is being able to walk away from a toxic environment, a job, a deal, a partnership without having to stay just because you need the paycheck. It's the ability to choose peace over panic, calling over comfort. And true freedom is, giving generously without pulling out the calculator first. You're not thinking, will I have enough left over? Because you already know you're operating from overflow. Psalm 37 verse 21 says, the wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Look at that contrast. One is living in overflow, able to release without fear. The other is living in lack, constantly taking just to stay afloat. And this isn't about the amount of money you make. I've seen people earning 6 figures who are still trapped, and people earning modest incomes who live free. The difference is control. The difference is margin. The difference is whose voice you're answering, God's or your lender's. So hear me on this. Financial freedom is not about living bigger than everyone else. It's about living unshackled. It's not about showing off wealth. It's about showing up for God without delay. Write down one decision you've delayed because of money. Make it your mission to free yourself from whatever financial block is stopping it. That's your first freedom win. Because every win builds momentum, and momentum is how you escape the orbit of survival. Now pay attention to this. Bondage doesn't just break because time passes. It doesn't break because you're believing for better. And honestly, it doesn't even break because you pray about it. Bondage breaks when you reject it, fully, deliberately, and out loud. This is more than cutting up a credit card, more than picking up a side hustle. Those things help, but they're just tools. The real turning point is when you make a decision deep in your spirit and say, I will not live another year making money my master. That's the line in the sand moment. That's when you stop treating financial chains like an inconvenience and start treating them like an enemy. Because until you hate it, you'll tolerate it. Until you see debt, constant lack, and financial stress as something you were never meant to carry, you'll keep making peace with it. And making peace with bondage is just another way of agreeing to stay a prisoner. So you have to rise up inside and say, enough. I'm done living at the mercy of a paycheck. I'm done letting Visa, the bank, or overdue notices tell me what I can and can't do. I'm done letting money decide my obedience. That decision, not the tool, not the spreadsheet, not the side job, is the beginning of freedom. Because once you've decided, the actions come easier. You'll cut what needs to be cut. You'll sell what needs to be sold. You'll work harder than you thought you could. Not because you suddenly became disciplined, but because you're done living as a servant to something that's supposed to serve you. Speak it out, literally. Every morning for the next 30 days, declare, money serves me. I don't serve money. Your mind will start believing what your mouth repeats. Because once you believe it, your decisions will start proving it. Moving on. If you really want to break free financially, then you need to make money a servant, not a master. When money is your master, it doesn't lead you, it drives you. And it drives you with fear. Fear of bills, fear of losing the job, fear of the phone ringing with a number you don't recognize, fear of taking a step God told you to take because, well, what if it doesn't work out? When money's in charge, every decision is based on avoiding pain instead of pursuing purpose. You live reactive, defensive, small. But when money is your servant, everything flips. Now you set the direction. You tell it where to go, what to do, and how to work for you. Money doesn't decide if you can obey God. You do. Money doesn't decide if you can be generous. You do. Money doesn't decide if you can walk away from something toxic. You do. That's the shift we're after. From fear-driven to purpose-driven, from paycheck-dependent to spirit-led. And that shift doesn't happen by accident. You choose it, you train it, you tell money, you work for me now. Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool, and tools don't get to boss the builder around. Give your money assignments. Before it hits your account, decide exactly where it's going. Giving, saving, investing, living. That's how you take the driver's seat. Because when you control the flow, money stops controlling you. If you stay financially bound, your spiritual life will always be capped. You won't pray boldly. You won't dream widely. You won't move freely. But if you break free, you can serve without stress, give without guilt, obey without delay. And that's where joy lives. That's where faith grows. That's where God's plans can run full speed in your life. If you've been feeling like your spiritual life is stuck, check your financial life. They're not separate boxes, they're connected. The sooner you get money out of the driver's seat, the sooner you'll start living free indeed. Now I've got something for you. Drop money is spiritual warfare in the comments so I know you're locked in. And if this hit home for you, share it with someone who's fighting the same battle. Because the enemy doesn't care how much you know if he can keep you broke. But you're not staying there. Not anymore. If you got value from this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. And make sure to check out my other video here for more money tips. You won't want to miss it.